Nevada, Dawn Wells attended Stevens College in Missouri before going on to represent Nevada in the Miss America pageant of 1959. She found success in Hollywood immediately afterward, appearing in such shows as 77 Sunset Strip, Maverick, Bonanza, and Hawaiian Eye. She was later cast in the role of a lifetime as Mary Ann in Gilligan's Island, beating out 350 other actresses, including Raquel Welch. Since then, Wells has continued acting on the stage and screen, produced films, and been active in a number of charities. Her new book, What Would Mary Ann Do?, was published this past fall by Taylor Trade Publishing. Now, please join me in welcoming Dawn Wells.
It's your childhood right here. Thank you for welcoming me. I'm a graduate of the University of Washington. So I understand your city, but I was really astounded by the rain tonight. I had forgotten. Thank you for welcoming me. We're here tonight for questions, I guess. I'm very proud of the book I've written. Mary Ann has sort of been an icon for 50 years this year. Can you believe it? And wherever I go, the fans have all, I raised you, you know. I was your childhood, and, you know, I was Mickey Mouse, whatever, you know, when I was a kid. But I have been in wonder at the popularity of this show around the world. They didn't expect us to last more than 6 weeks. They thought it was the stupidest thing ever written. They said to us, well, you know, that's not going to last. And they told Sherwood Schwartz, what are we doing? But they did an audience reaction. And it was the highest CBS had ever had. So they gave us a shot, and they said, well, we're not going to last more than a year. We have never been off the air since 1964. Wow. We are in 30 languages all over the world. Well, it's not my fault that Mr. Schwartz had something that he thought was really wonderful. And it's kind of no cars, no clothes. They could tell you when it was. And every generation of kids growing up kind of had that Robinson Crusoe. We could all be on an island. So it's changed my life a great deal. I was a chemistry major when I came to Washington. And I was, Glenn Hughes was the head of the theater department at that point. And I remember when I graduated, you had to take a senior comprehensive test. You had to take a test of what you learned for 4 years, set design, costume, and all of that. And I came from another college. And boy, you really crammed for 4 or 5 months in order to get your degree. I'm very proud to be part of the University of Washington. Grew up in Reno, Nevada. I never saw a drop of rain till I hit here. I saw it all tonight. It all came down at the same time. So I'm just here to tell you I'm very proud about the book. All my life, wherever I go, there are fans of all ages. And most of the people say, I married a Mary Ann. A lot of the guys talk about that was the girl that they would have chosen. She was a good girl. She was fair, and she knew how to cook and to clean and do all that kind of stuff. And I think that we've lost a lot of that. And I think that's why, oh, thank you. I think that's why it has sustained. There's no cars or clothes that tell you when it was filmed to begin with. But I think that this is 7 misfits trying to get along. Now we're how many continents trying to get along? It's the same thing. All different values, all different walks of life, trying to coexist. A little bit of comedy helps. A little bit of money helps. A little bit of intellect helps. Mary Ann cooked and cleaned, so everybody worked really well. And, you know, we were made fun of, and I had no idea the impact that this show has made across the world. I can't go anywhere in the world with Mary Ann in Beijing. I was in the Solomon Islands. I have trick knees, so I can't do any sports. But I have several college friends that I travel with, and we did the gorilla climb in Rwanda. And I had several of my classmates say, let's go to the Solomon Islands. I know a photographer that knows all about it. We can go there. We can canoe from island to island. There's no running water. There's no electricity. Let's see what it's like. So we were there for 5 weeks trying to figure out what to eat, trying to get away from the poisonous snakes, trying to go from place to place. And we sailed up to an island called Sulafu, little small island there where no running water, no electricity, all the huts up on stilts. And the chief's family had been chief for 9 generations. His son was going to the University of Fiji or something to learn to be a chief again. And as we canoed up to the island, the chief's wife, they had, I guess little kids doing the war dances and in their costumes and everything. And the chief's wife looked at me and said, I know you. I went, what? In the middle of the Pacific Ocean with no water or no electricity, no anything? She'd gone to nursing school in Honiara in the Solomon Islands in 1979 and used to come home and watch Gilligan's Island on black and white. So I sent our producer a little note and say, guess what? In the middle of the Pacific Ocean, here we are. So I could have done a million other things as an actress that I'd say challenged me more and it was more satisfying, whatever, but nothing that would have touched the world like this character has. So that's one of the reasons I've written the book. There is no Marianne today. It's Miley Cyrus on top of the piano. Or the Kardashians or something. And I don't mean that we should go back, and I don't mean any of that at all. But it's a very difficult time today. And you as parents with children that are in their room doing all of this, and there's divorced families living together, and both parents have to work, and it's a very different time. My mother raised a Marianne. My mother had Marianne values. That's dissipated now. And how do you, as a parent of a 14 and 15-year-old girl or boy, tell them what to do? Because the internet's telling them what to do, and their friends are telling them what to do. So since I've had so many fans come up to me and say, I really married a Marianne, what does that mean? And I've looked at it with quite a bit of value because I think it has made a difference. That's what this book is about. What would you do if you had a Marianne today, or what can we do? I'm not saying you can't do the things that they're all doing, because they're all doing it, so no matter what. But when you stop and think about it, when I think about the fans, I've had boys come up to me and say I was an abused kid, and the only joy I had was coming home and watching your show. Or I was alone, and I had nobody that really cared for me, and I saw how the 7 of you who were all misfits got along. As silly as the show seems, it's made a difference. And there's no clothes or cars or anything that tell you when it was filmed, so it could be happening tomorrow. And as silly as it seems, it's one of the longest lasting shows in the history of television. So I'm here and I'm ready to answer questions or anything you want to know. Well, not anything you want to know. I'm not going to tell you everything I know, but I'm glad you're here and thank you for that. Yes?
Somebody asked me why I like Gilligan's Island. I told them, I reflected on it. I think it's because the characters are very likable. And I think it was well cast.
I agree with you. I think that's part of it, isn't it? Getting the right cast together. And everybody had their little niche where you sort of fit and people loved you. There was no discord. Nobody, even though with the Howells with all their money, did we care? Were we jealous of that? No. And I think Marianne was sort of the moral compass. Come on, you got to help the skipper take off the weight. Mr. Howell, be a little nicer to Mrs. Howell. And Gilligan got us marooned on the island, and we didn't bully him, you know? So it is kind of a lesson, and it's interesting how many generations that's touched. You're getting the education without knowing you're getting it, actually. I think that's what it is. Yes?
Yeah, I mean, I can relate to that as well, because I grew up in the 60s and 70s, and I was a kid that was picked on a lot.
Yes.
And so the first thing I always looked forward to was coming home, and kind of like the stories you've heard before is to watch Gilligan's Island. That was my favorite show.
Because you felt good about yourself, because you weren't being bullied, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where is that today? What are the kids looking at today? I don't know.
Certainly not Gilligan's Island. That's for sure.
No, and they said it was the stupidest show.
Yeah.
They didn't give him 20 minutes of being on the air. And now it's 50 years this year.
Yeah, I watch it whenever I can.
I do too, and I laugh. You know, I think that's the stupidest thing I ever saw. Somebody surfed on and surfed off, and nobody knew who they were. But you accepted it, didn't
Well,
you?
it was very interesting because, you know, you guys always had wardrobe changes, but there was never no
Amazing. And we didn't even have suitcases. Mrs. Howell was always dressed. Ginger was always dressed. But you accepted it
For
as
a
a kid.
3-hour tour.
That's a 3-hour tour. You're right. Yeah. Way back there, yes.
Yes, can you tell us the circumstances that led to making the reunion movies?
That's interesting because we were picked up for the 4th season. We had all the scripts purchased. We were going to Hawaii for the first time to shoot. And this is what I've been told. We were moved every year from Monday to Wednesday to Thursday, and now they were moving us to Monday. And that day and age, there were only 3 channels, so the audience followed us, which was quite significant. And they put us on Monday night for a first half hour, but they had a half hour, they canceled Gunsmoke, and they had a half hour after us that they couldn't fill. Dennis Weaver had a pilot and they couldn't get it sold. And they weren't sure what to do with us. And Mr. Paley was the head of CBS at that moment. And we had our scripts all purchased and we'd gone on vacation, and our producer called us and said, "You've been canceled." I said, "What?" He said, "Yeah, you've been canceled." Mrs. Paley came home and said, "What do you mean you cancel Gunsmoke? It's my favorite show." So Mr. Paley put Gunsmoke back on the air and canceled us. I mean, it's all political, but maybe that's better than having us wind down and you got bored with us. Maybe you canceled at the top of the ratings. I don't know.
I never got bored.
Yeah, I don't know. Anybody else? Yeah.
Yeah, first of all, I just want to say thank you so much for coming out to Seattle. I've been watching you on Facebook, like, geez,
Isn't Facebook fabulous?
Yeah.
What number are you? Have I talked to you?
No.
Not yet. Okay.
But this is a relatively trivial question, but I just got to know what the circumstances are behind you and the professor being finally mentioned by name in the theme song.
And the rest?
Yes. Even as a kid, I thought, man, that's just
A slap in the face. No, it really wasn't. Well, Russell had a series already. He'd done Black Saddle, or I don't know what his series was, but he was kind of a bad guy, and I was just freelancing, and I didn't expect anything more than what we got. But when you realize there's only 7 people on the island, it was very different. But we were auditioning. There were 3 replacements. The pilot was made in Hawaii with 7 different people. The Howells were still involved. It was during the Kennedy assassination, as a matter of fact. But CBS said, okay, but let's recast. The rest of the characters are kind of nebulous. So they did a professor and a farm girl and the Howells, etc. And when they got ready to cast it, who knew? Who knew where it was going to go, what we were going to do? What was your question? I've lost it completely.
Well, I just wanted to know when they finally...
Oh, the credits, okay.
Yeah.
So we all auditioned. We all auditioned at CBS in Los Angeles and New York. Professor and I were auditioning in Los Angeles with everybody, trying to match everybody up. Ginger auditioned in New York City. She was cast first. And her agent said she's in 5th position billing. Her billing comes right after the Howells and nobody after her. So once those 5 people were mentioned, it was just and the rest.
So
And the rest.
maybe they didn't know at that point, or...
It was a clever agent, is what it was. But well, because the fan mail, and I don't know who really made the decision, because Russell and I spent many years saying love and the rest to our Christmas cards and stuff like that. Always love and the rest. But I think that there was such a feedback from all the public that Sherwood Schwartz, Gilligan, one of the directors, said, this is stupid, there's only 7 people. So they rewrote the contract. Didn't give us any more money, but they put up Somebody else? Anybody else? Yes.
Some of the characters, but not all characters on the show, had a catchphrase.
We did. They did. What was it?
And I considered your catchphrase as go, oh.
Oh!
You did that almost every
I did?
show. Every show. And it was very, it's kind of, wow, it's very many women. You don't hear any women do that now. And was that...
Probably shouldn't have been doing it then either. I don't know.
Is that natural, or is that something they say...
Oh, no, there was no direction about that. But the direction in the cast was a millionaire, his wife, a movie star, a professor, a skipper, his mate, and a girl from Kansas. So there was no description of who I was. So what I developed in the character was who I thought Marianne should be. I remember in the auditions, I kept saying to the vice president, Ethel Lynott of CBS, she's in gingham. She's in gingham, that's what she is. She's in tied up tops and she's in ponytails and all that. That's the character. So not only did it was written as a girl from Kansas, but I think I really helped establish who I thought she was. I really kind of gave her the character I thought she was. And she was fair. I mean, when you read the book, you see she was the one that kind of kept everybody together. There was no animosity or jealousy or anything. She was a hard worker. She was your best friend. She wouldn't have taken your boyfriend away from you, If you married her, she'd have done the laundry. Yes. Coconut cream pies. Yes.
When you brought that up about the wardrobe, and this has popped in my head because I remember Barbara Eden, that Dream of Jeannie, that had
Yeah.
problems with standards and practices with
Yes.
her costume, and she couldn't show a belly button.
Right.
Did y'all run into that?
Oh my
same-
goodness, I designed the shorts because it was the first shorts ever on television. And you had to cover my navel. So you ladies understand this, but I'm short and I'm not long-legged, so I kind of made the shorts come up a little bit on the side. I made them go up a little bit on the waist so that my torso would look longer, and then we had to have a little V at the top of the shorts to cover the navel. And I think Ginger's cleavage and Marianne's navel were only allowed 3 seconds an episode. So Sherwood Schwartz's wife would say, "How was your day, dear?" "Well, between Ginger's cleavage and Dawn's navel, I was on the set 3 times." Because if you're walking, the shorts kind of move. I mean, look how far we've come, or gone down, or whatever. I don't know. But I mean, it really was an ethical thing that they, short shorts on television at that point. There's always the Howells and the Mary Tyler Van Dyke slept in twin beds. Don't do that anymore, do they? And the Lucy Show, too. Yeah, well, the censors really had it. I don't know where they are today. They've gone to Hawaii, having a vacation. They're not around. I don't know where they are. Yes?
So with the dichotomy between Marianne and Ginger, what was the relationship between you and Tina Louise then and maybe now?
What did I do?
Nothing. You didn't
I
do
ruined
anything.
everything.
No.
I always do. Well, there was no... our characters were very defined. There was no jealousy. I mean, I wish I could have worn Ginger's clothes, but there was none of that going on. Ginger was a movie star. Tina was a movie star when she came aboard. And Russell and Ginger and I were cast last. She was cast first. That's why she was in 5th position billing. But she was a big movie star. I was in awe. She'd done God's Little Acre with Rock Hudson. She was on Broadway. She was absolutely beautiful. You couldn't interchange the costumes. That wouldn't work. As a kid and reading under that, I wore shorts and a tied-up top, and Ginger, of course, would have been very glamorous. So I think that every character was exaggerated to a certain point. She was beautiful. She really was, and I was really in awe. She got us false eyelashes from New York City at $25 a pair, and they were mink. I mean, it's like you had fur on your eyelashes. But she did it, and she knew her camera angles, and she knew what the camera wanted and all of that. So I learned a lot from her. There was no discord on the show. Tina was not Ginger. It was not, I think at some point she was sorry she did it, because I think she was a star, and I think she thought it was sort of not a put down, but, kind of going backwards. And I think just a few years ago, I think she went, wait a minute, the longest running show in the history of television syndication, and we're loved everywhere around the world. You can't discount that. So I think she's come around. We don't associate together. She lives in New York, I live in Los Angeles. We don't have anything in common particularly, but it was a very good set. We all got along. There was no temper tantrums. I never saw anybody, leave saying, I don't like these lines. I don't know, maybe behind the scenes, talking to the producer, Gilligan might have said this scene doesn't work. But when you look at the cast, when you look at who they did, and I know it seems silly and trivial, but the physical comedy that Bob did was wonderful. He reminds me of Charlie Chaplin. He could do anything with his body. And the chemistry between all of us was really superb. And that doesn't always happen. You may have somebody that's kind of irritated that he's there or not part of the company. Nobody discussed the script and said, there's somebody surfing on and surfing off. Are you kidding? We just accepted it. Yes, anybody else? Yes? Well, the set was really cool because the first 2 or 3 episodes we tried to shoot at Malibu. It was so foggy between 12 and 3. You had about 3 hours of filming, and it took you an hour to get there, an hour to get back. So CBS built a lagoon. We had a sound stage where the huts were built. They were on and off most of the time. But the stuff outdoors, CBS built a lagoon where a little boat would come in and a little waterfall. This is my favorite thing because it's all showbiz, it's all fantasy. So we have this little lagoon at CBS Radford Studios, and they brought in orchids and palm trees, and the orchids are, of course, in pots with moss, all of them, and all look so authentic, and it's so beautiful. And we'd shoot 1 or 2 days, and then we'd go back to the sound stage where the huts were, and Gunsmoke would come in, and they put pine trees and tumbleweeds, same thing, same lake, same everything, but now it's a Western set. And I just was at CBS about 3 or 4 weeks ago, and it's all cemented in. It's a parking lot, and there's a little thing that said, this is a Gilligan's Island Lagoon.
So you didn't get to go to Hawaii?
No, and we were ready to go to Hawaii the last season, and we were dropped. Isn't that awful? The pilot was shot in Hawaii, but that was only Mr. and Mrs. Howell. The rest of the people were all recast. But you didn't know we weren't on an island, did you? You accepted it. If you were 3, you accepted anything. Yes?
Do you know whether if the series would have been allowed to progress if they were planning on getting the castaways off the island, or had they thought that far ahead?
I think we would have been gone for another 2 or 3 years had they not taken the time slot away. I mean, I think the fantasy of us trying to get off with somebody serving on and surfing off and all that silly stuff, you accepted. It was that fantasy, and I don't think it would have tried to be any more realistic.
Yeah.
But it was just canceled at the height of its ratings. Yes?
A comment that was to remind me of a friend of mine here in Seattle is a musician. She's been on several major record labels.
Oh, good.
And about 5 years ago, she's had her band. She would have her band. Well, she had her band called And the Rest.
Oh, good. Oh, yes.
For people that thought it was a clever.
Was it a girl and a guy?
Well, she had a few guys in the band, you know,
And the
backing
Rest.
her up, and I just thought that was a brilliant name for
It
a
is.
band.
Russell and I would send each other cards. Love the rest at Christmas. Love the rest at our birthdays.
And did you find it ironic that Russell lived on Bainbridge Island?
Yeah.
He lived on an island.
And I loved him so.
Yeah.
We were such good friends. We just lost him last
Yeah,
year.
he was a customer of mine.
Was he?
At Tower Records, who would come to the store. On Queens
Wasn't he a
Island.
lovely man?
Yes.
And I didn't know until the funeral he'd received a Purple Heart. I knew he fought in World War II and he was shot down over the Guadalcanal, but I didn't know that either. And he was, of all of the seven of us, with all the wit, he was the funniest, off camera. He had a great sense of humor. If we had not been both married, we'd been on our own island somewhere, I'm sure. And the rest somewhere, I'm sure. Somebody else? Anybody else? Yes?
I know you've probably been asked this question before, but do you have a favorite episode that you did?
That I did, a favorite episode that I did. Well, we all love the dream sequences where it could be something else. I had a favorite episode where it was Eliza Doolittle, you know, coming down with the umbrella and all of that, doing the Cockney accent, or the little old hag that answered the door, because we got to do something else. But I think one of the, and I've said this many times, one of the episodes that I remember the most was the episode with a lion. And it was a lion. It was a big old lion who only had a rope around his neck, no choke chain, no darts to stop him from what he was doing. And the trainer had claw marks all over him. I don't know how many animals he trained. He'd been through several things. And we had to go through all kinds of things. The women had to be careful about the time of the month. Everything had to be, no, really and truly. Oh yeah, you had to be very careful with this lion. So everything was all ready to shoot with this lion, and he was older than I don't know what, this poor old lion with no teeth. But he came in, I mean, a lion is a lion. And Bob and I wanted to pet him. I wanted to touch him, Bob wanted to touch him, and the trainer had claws marked with a rope in his hand. He said, well, be careful, because if you just pet him, he's going to think you're a fly, and he's going to take off your hand. Pet him, really pet him. So he would sleep all day long. The lion would sleep all day long, and we had a few scenes that we did with him. And it was the Friday night, the very last of the last episode. And the hut is where I am, and the fourth wall is the camera, and it's the scene in the Howells hut. And it's about 7:30 at night on a Friday night, and the lion's pacing now. You know how cats are at night, and the trainer's walking him up and down and walking him up and down. We get ready to do the shoot. Here's the camera, here's the set, and Gilligan is supposed to run in, afraid the lion is chasing him, board himself up, and the lion's on the bed. So he says action, Gilligan comes in, shuts the door, and the lion is about as close as I am to you, and the lion leaps for him, goes for Bob. Bob only has 3 feet behind him, and Bob goes, like he's going to hit him between the eyes. But the thing that was the miracle was, the lion would have gotten him, no question about it. The prop man had not tied the twin beds together. And when the lion leaped from one bed to the other, the twin beds separated, and the lion lost his balance. And the trainer came in and got a hold of him. Bob was never scared for 1 minute. We were all just like this, you know. So I remember that one more than any other one. That's it. One more and I'll talk fast. Nobody wants to ask that last question. Okay, he will.
How did they come about naming the show Gilligan?
I don't know, and I don't know where the name Gilligan came from. And I really do believe to this day and age there was no last name. People said it's Willie Gilligan. No, it was Gilligan. And I think he went through the phone book and found a name that sounded kind of funny. I don't know. Anybody else real quick?
You're beautiful.
I love you. I'm older than dirt, but I'm still here. That's what, you know, thank you very much. Anybody else? No? Thank you. Well, I hope you get the book. I'm very proud of the book. Mary Ann has resounded across the continents. There is something about Mary Ann that tells you what's right and what's wrong.
Yeah.
and kind of why we love her. So, oh, you have the old one too.
Very old.
Very old DVD. What is that? A book?
Yeah?
Whose is that? Sherwood's?
Yes?
Whoa! I wrote a cookbook.
It's
Nobody
on
cares.
the
But
minute. Yeah, that's good.
well, this is I'm very proud of this book. It's taken me a long while to have the Marianne voice out there. So, thank you for coming tonight. I appreciate it. See you in line if you're coming around. Thank you.